Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first ever Ivy Manor Music Show. This is your host, Mr. Brian Goff, bar manager here at Henry Hotels in beautiful Bar Harbor, Maine. I also handle all the live entertainment that's performed at our incredible outdoor venue, the Ivy Manor Inn, located at 194 Main Street, downtown Bar Harbor. We just finished our fourth season of doing live music at the Ivy, and it was certainly our best season yet. We thought we'd have some fun this off season and lead up to the 2025 season and do this music show. During this show, you're going to meet our incredible roster and lineup of musicians that we have playing the Ivy Manor Inn. And I couldn't think of a better musician to have as the first guest of this show, because he was the first musician I met when I first moved here to Bar Harbor in 1997. He was the first musician to play the Ivy Manor Inn under my management 4 years ago. If I ever have any questions pertaining to anything in the music world, he's certainly the first musician that I will pick up the phone and call. And with all those things said, I thought he'd be the perfect first guest. This person is none other than Mark Bluesboy Kanter. Mark Kanter joins the show. Mark, how are you?
Hey, Brian. Good to see you. How am I? Well, I am thawing out. When I got up this morning, it was about 2 degrees. But now I'm moving around a little bit. Things are thawing out, and I'm doing pretty well. The sun is shining, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. There's a number of things that I want to get into you with. First question I have is, you have a very cool and interesting story about how you first got here to Bar Harbor. Your roots are New York City. You have been living in Bar Harbor for a number of years now. Tell our listeners a little bit about this aforementioned cool story about how you got here.
So it was 1974. It was a couple of weeks ago. I was living in the Bronx. I was working in Fort Apache, the South Bronx. They made a movie about Fort Apache. 1974, Fort Apache was the worst precinct in the United States for murders and fires. I thought it was a cool neighborhood. Anyway, I had a 2-week vacation. I had a little van. I had outfitted the van into a little camper of sorts. And my idea was to go to Portland, Maine, and catch the ferry to Nova Scotia. And I had planned on spending my vacation in Nova Scotia. So much for my idea and intentions. I picked up these 2 women hitchhiking in Connecticut. And they were going to Bar Harbor. And from the minute they got in my van, they started to convince me I should go to Bar Harbor. I could still get the ferry to Nova Scotia. Katy National Park was there. It was 1973, actually, because I moved here in 74. And I said, why not? So those women led me to Bar Harbor. We got here in the middle of the night. I let them out of my van, and I never saw them again. And it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Being here in Bar Harbor, Maine, surrounded by all the natural beauty, has made such a great difference in my life. Plus, as you know, there's a huge amount of commerce in the summer. And that allows all of us to actually work during the season and be able to live here. So it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, those women leading me here to Bar Harbor.
Absolutely. And you just touched upon it. Back in the 70s, you made this trip. Simple math says you've been here for 50 years or so.
50 years, and it's amazing. Blink, blink. It seems like last week.
Very cool. A lot of us know you by Mark, your first name. Others, out of respect, call you Mr. Kanter. In the music world, you're known as Bluesboy. How did this moniker come about, and who's responsible for giving you this nickname?
So again, I've been in Bar Harbor for 50 years. And when I do my own shows, they're blues-based. There's a lot of blues in them. I can play other kinds of music, but when I do my own shows, they're blues-based. And I've been playing blues in Bar Harbor for a long time. And I don't remember exactly who started it, but people started calling me Bluesboy. I'd be walking down the street, I'd hear from a half a block behind, "Hey, Bluesboy!" Initially, I kind of resisted. I'm not one on titles, but it kept growing and growing, so I accepted it. And now when I perform as Mark Bluesboy.
Yeah, now that I've been back in Bar Harbor on a full-time basis for coming up on 5 years now, it seems I hear Bluesboy used more so than your own real name.
It allows me to be anonymous. It's okay.
You just said it. Blues is your forte. Blues is your background. Although I've seen you play a lot of different styles of music, but blues seems to be what your bread and butter is, if you will. What age were you when you were first influenced by blues, and who are some of these great musicians that made you want to be a blues player all these years ago?
So I started playing harmonica around 1966, so I've been at it for a little while. I used to walk around my neighborhood and play harmonica. And then I heard the Paul Butterfield Blues Band. And that really has changed the course of my life, just listening to that music. It really got me involved in wanting to play the blues. Butterfield was one of the greatest innovators on harmonica in the history of the instrument. And he used it like nobody else used it before him. And it caught my ear, it caught my attention. And even now, sometimes when I play, people can hear a little bit of Butterfield in my playing. So that really, really got me into it, and I've been on that road ever since and have played the blues ever since.
So Butterfield's your number one influence. Is that what you're saying?
He was the one that changed the direction of my musical life.
Very, very cool. What I know about blues music is B.B. King and Buddy Guy. These are two legends in their own right. Did any of these men have an influence on you, Mark? And,
well, Buddy and B.B. both did. The early blues guys, they had a little more of an influence on me. Guys like Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Little Walter on harmonica. These guys, most of them originally came from Mississippi. A lot of them ended up in Chicago, which had a big blues scene. And they were the ones that created the music that first hit the ears of us in the 1960s. So they were big influences on me. B.B. was an ambassador of the blues, almost as if the way Louis Armstrong was an ambassador for jazz. B.B. King brought the blues to a much wider audience, I saw him in Bangor at the old Civic Center. It wasn't a great music venue, but it was great to have B.B. in Bangor. And after the show, he spent a lot of time, he came out, and he handed out trinkets to all the kids that were in the audience. So he was an ambassador, and that was a big influence, watching him be able to do that. And there have been people throughout time that have been ambassadors of music. A modern blues ambassador, maybe without even trying, is Joe Bonamassa, because he plays to a very wide audience. He's not strictly blues, but he plays a lot of blues, so he exposes that audience that might not have heard the blues to the blues, and then it creates fans, and it's been like that ever since. It's always been like that with the blues. People get taken to it that necessarily wouldn't have listened on their own. They hear something that draws them in, and they become blues fans, and that's the way blues can continue to be popular on and off for decades.
Great points. I used to go to B.B. King's club in West Palm Beach, Florida when I lived down there. Never saw him there, but certainly saw a lot of great blues music being played out of there in the times that I visited. And, I didn't really listen to blues when I was a younger person, but the older I've got, and certainly you're a part of that, hearing all your great shows at the Ivy Manor Inn over the last 4 years and beyond, it's given me an appreciation for this style of music.
Well, one thing about the blues, and this is what I think draws people in about it, it's a fairly underlying, simple musical form. So it doesn't create doesn't need a lot of thought to understand it. So it's very understandable. But what it does for the musicians is it creates a really great backdrop to express themselves over. There's very, very few limits when you have a simple backdrop, and it allows people to really express themselves. And that's one of the things about blues that draws people in. The people that play it are expressing their own passion when they play it.
Great points. Mark, those of us who know you on a personal level know that you suffered a injury to your left hand, a hand that you typically need to use to play guitar. The guitar playing has been put on hold since that injury. I wanted to ask you, where are we at with the healing process of that left hand? Is there any timeline to when you may pick up the guitar again? And are you basically just a harmonica player right now until further notice?
I said I'm just a harmonica player until further notice. Well, I do sing as well. There is no healing beyond what I have right now. So I have two middle fingers on my left hand that basically don't work that well. So it didn't allow me to play guitar. But what I have done recently, and I just started playing with it, and we'll see if I take to it or not. I bought a square neck resonator guitar, and you play that with a tone bar. A tone bar is a metal bar that you hold with the first finger of your hand. And the job of the two fingers behind it, and these are the two kind of dead fingers, is to lie on the strings and mute the strings behind the tone bar. So actually these string fingers do that naturally now. So I've been messing around with that. I'm starting to get a little bit of a handle on it. It's a completely different sound and technique than regular guitar. So it's taken my ears a while to get accustomed to the sound. But now they're starting to, and now I'm being able to use it to create musical phrases and stuff. So we'll see what happens with that. It's winter. Everybody needs a project in the winter around here. So I'm glad to have the project, and it's fun. I sit in my sitting room, I plug it in, and I noodle around and try to make some pleasing sounds.
Now, you are a very active musician this time of year, certainly with the open mic scene. How close are we to taking this new instrument out for a spin, if you will, and playing this instrument in front of people at one of these aforementioned?
There's no timeline. It's up to me. How much time do I put in on it? I got to bring it to the point where it sounds good when I take it out. There's no timeline. It'll happen when and if it happens.
Very good. You talked about the harmonica earlier. The good news is you're an incredible harmonica player as well. Even though the guitar is on hold for the time being, harmonica has been your bread and butter for at least the last 2 seasons. My question to you, Mark, is, as a person who doesn't play an instrument, but certainly loves listening to music of all forms, it would seem challenging enough to master one musical instrument. Here you are having mastered 2. How does one master 2 when it seems it would be hard enough to master 1?
Well, I don't think I've mastered anything in music or outside of music. It's a constant pursuit. You're always playing, and what happens is sometimes when you play, something happens that hasn't happened before, and it's like, wow, what did I just do? And can I do it again? So I haven't really mastered anything. But over time, and again, I've been playing for a really, really long time. I've been living in Bar Harbor for 50 years, but I had already been playing music for quite a while when I moved here. And repetition over time, you learn about the instrument, you become more adept at it, and eventually, if you're lucky, you reach the point where the instrument that you're playing becomes an extension of yourself. And that's when you're able to speak through it. And what I've found is when you can do that and people hear it, they get the impression that you've mastered the instrument. And I haven't mastered anything, as I said, but I'm really grateful for my gifts. I seem to have this gift to be able to converse musically. So it's a beautiful thing. It's made my life so much easier to be able to do that.
Now, some of these shows I've seen you perform at the Ivy Manor Inn and beyond, seems like you carry a number of harmonicas with you. I've seen a recent show where it seemed like you were changing a new harmonica almost every song. How many harmonicas do you own, Mark? And how many would you use at any particular show?
So that question comes up a lot because people that don't play don't know. A lot of times I'll be playing at the Ivy and I'll set my harmonica case just below the upright bar opposite your bar, and people look at it and they're stymied because I'm carrying so many harmonicas. But when I play it, it's called the diatonic harmonica. It has 10 holes. It's not very complicated. And each one of these is tuned to a different key. So there are 12 keys in Western music. That's the type of music we play here. So I usually carry 12 or 14 harmonicas because some harmonicas have alternatives just to the straight key. So when I'm gigging, I have to carry at least 12 harmonicas with me. When I'm a sideman, I never know what key the person is going to play in, and I have to be able to play in all 12 keys.
Interesting. So
But how many do I have? I don't know. They're all over my life. I have boxes of them. And harmonicas, like people, wear out, and I got boxes of worn-out harmonicas.
So a lot of the times the harmonica that you're playing is based on what the musician is playing and what keys and tones they're playing in.
If you watched me work as a sideman, before a song, I turn to whoever's doing the tune and I say, what key is this in? That's really all the information I need.
Right.
But yes, I have to play a different key depending upon what they're playing.
Interesting stuff for sure. I'm learning a lot about this this harmonica and blues music as a whole. So this is awesome. Having played live music in Bar Harbor for, you said it earlier, 50 years now. I'm curious to know, Mark, how the music scene has changed here in Bar Harbor from when you first got here to the year 2025.
Well, live music scenes, not just in Bar Harbor, wherever they are, they go through cycles. They go through periods of live music becoming more popular. They go through periods of live music becoming less popular. It's just a natural part of the business. When I moved here in the 70s, Bar Harbor was a late night party town. I don't know if you could say that about it now, although a little bit of that is coming back. But there were several venues in town. The bars would be rocking until 1 a.m. and it was going on for many, many years. As a matter of fact, I used to cook breakfast at the Town Farm restaurant. Town Farm was the first vegetarian restaurant in Bar Harbor. And we would open up after the bars closed and stay open till 2 a.m. And sometimes we'd do 150 breakfasts between midnight and 2 a.m. So back then it was a big, big party town. That started to die off, and a lot of those clubs went away. A few of them hung on for a while, but most of those clubs went away. And the music scene here again took a change. Then COVID hit, and COVID basically wiped out live music. But one of the benefits of COVID, I always say, even inside of things that we think are negative, there are usually gifts. People realized, number one, how important other people were to them because they had maybe gotten distanced by technology. So that brought that back. Also, people really missed live music, and music in Bar Harbor now has come back with a vengeance. In the summer, there are a lot of live music venues, so it is really rocking and rolling now. And what happens is the more places that become a venue, the more places think they need to as well to compete with it. So right now we're on a roll in Bar Harbor, and it's great to see. It creates opportunity for my musician friends to go out and make some pocket change.
Not only Bar Harbor, but all of Hancock County. I mean, Ellsworth's got a hot little scene even in the off season. Folks are doing it in Southwest Harbor, Trenton, Northeast Harbor for that matter. I know of a couple of places over in the Schoonic area. Across the water, they're doing live music as well, and I think it's great. I think, I love music. It's one of the things I love about working at the Ivy Manor, and the fact that, when I work every day, there is a live, incredible musical performance going on. And oftentimes when I'm not working, if I want to go out and be social, I look for music. It's just a wonderful thing on so many different levels. Mark, your collaboration is as good as I've seen out there. I think you're the best collaborator in all of MDI, and this spans back several years and all the different musicians that I've seen you perform with. I'd like to bring up some of these musicians who I have seen these collaborations with and get your thoughts on them, not only as musicians, what makes you guys so great together, and just a little bit about them as people as well. The first musician I'd like to bring up is your bandmate from GOM, Mr. Dan Laurie. Your thoughts?
My thoughts. Dan and I go back a really, really long time. We have been in bands together over the last couple of decades. And Dan, I have a lot of respect for him, is a really hard worker. And he woodsheds a lot. If he's looking to learn new tunes, he'll put 2, 3, 4 hours in. One thing about Dan that's really impressive, he has worked himself into being a really great vocalist, which was not the case several years ago. As a matter of fact, I had conversations with him. I said, Dan, it used to be really hard to listen to you sing, but it's not true anymore. And he knew, but he worked at it, and he worked his voice. He's got a great voice. He's a great singer now, so I have a lot of respect for him. As a matter of fact, Dan and I are playing a gig together on January 9th in Ellsworth at the Black Moon. So, yeah, what a treat. And Dan has become more interactive as a musician, and what I mean by that is the ability to go back and forth, have a musical conversation with somebody. And I love playing with people like that. So Dan's a hoot to play with. What else can I say?
I'm looking forward to that show on the 9th myself. I see you guys play, all spring, summer, and fall long. Well, you get a break for a couple months, you really start to miss it. So anytime that you're playing or some of our other incredible musicians are playing in and around the area. For example, I just saw Kip and Emily Young down in Waterville, Maine on Saturday night. I saw they were playing down there. I've got some friends in the area and kind of planned a weekend around it. It was just great to see them again. So looking forward to your and Dan's show on the 9th. That's for darn sure.
Did they have their dog at the gig?
They did not. This was an indoor gig, and Diggs was not in the house that night. So, moving on, Nathan Grant is the next musician on my list.
So I have been friends with Nathan's father for decades. And I knew Nathan when he was up to his father's knee. So I've seen him grow as a human into an adult, but I've really gotten to watch him develop as a musician. And Nathan is one of the best out there. Nathan is a great performer. In addition just to singing the songs, some of us are entertainers. Some of us are not. Nathan has turned into a great entertainer. One of the things that Nathan can do that very few people can do, he does a lot of pop tunes and he does requests. So he gets asked to play songs that he's not all that familiar with. He can pull it up on his iPad if he has a little bit of familiarity with the song and actually deliver a performance, which is not easy to do. For a lot of players, when they're reading the words, it's hard for them to deliver performance. They're so focused on the words. Nathan can and does. And Nathan is a hoot to play with because he understands how to work with another musician. So we always have a great time. So Nathan is a big boon to the musical community here. And he's in several bands, actually.
I totally agree. Not only the Nathan Grant solo show, but his collaboration with you. What I like about his show, you said it earlier, a lot of requests come in through that iPad. You could hear, a song played not only by Nathan, but the both of you during one of these collaborations of a song that you might not hear every week because it's a different crowd, different tastes of music. The fact that you guys can pick it up so quickly and play that song and give your own spin and rendition on it, it's a different show every time you guys play. It's been great. Musician number 3, Mr. Bill Haynes.
Bill Haynes. Bill Haynes is what I would call an old Manor. His family has been here for decades. And he has that old Maine wry sense of humor. And I've been playing with him for many, many years. Bill is really shy. And when I first met him, it was hard to actually get him to come out and play. And I tried to encourage him as much as I can. He's got a great voice. He's a good guitar player. And when I work with him, the sound is always really good. Everything works well together. So I love playing with Bill. I love having him around. He and our relationship has morphed over the years. As a matter of fact, Bill, he just like a lot of us around here, we have a little nip now and then, and he gets a little loose. And one time he said to me, he said, "When I first met you, I didn't think I was going to like you, but I do." And he said, "I love you." So Bill's another asset. We have such a great musical community here on the island.
Well said. I'm over in Southwest Harbor a couple of weeks ago, dropping into an open mic over there. I hadn't made my way over to check that open mic out over the last year or two. I walk in, there's you and Bill Haynes sharing the stage once again. What a treat!
It's kind of like watching Groundhog Day, deja vu all over again.
Well said, Jim Kaufman.
Jim is a very unusual human being. Aside from his musical life, he is one of the lead scientists at the MDI Biological Lab. Now, for a lot of people like scientists and engineers, sometimes they have trouble playing music because they're focused here, and music really comes from here. Jim is not like that. Jim is one of the best musicians around. He can play anything with strings on it. He plays guitar, he plays mandolin, he plays bass. He is a fabulous fiddle player. And he also plays trombone in the Bar Harbor Oompa Band. So very well versed and versatile musician. I played with him, 2 weeks ago, I believe, at the Next Level Sports Lounge for their open mic. And he's always a hoot to play with. And again, yet another major asset. We're so fortunate here to have all of these people in the musical community here.
I couldn't agree more. Russell Snyder.
Russell is what we call in the music biz a beautiful cat. He's got a huge heart, and he has been running his open mic at various venues for, 25 or 30 years. He comes to the place, he hauls in all the gear, the drum set, the PA system, the guitar amp, the bass amp. He even hangs lights. So I can walk in with my little harmonica bag and have all of that ready for me to go in and perform. So I love that. Russell does that week after week after week. And a lot of times it's a thankless job, so I try to make sure to tell him how much I appreciate it. In addition to that, he's an amazing musician. He plays drums. He's one of the most solid drummers around here. He can sing while he's playing drums. He sings. He can play harmonica. He uses a rack. I don't use that while he's playing drums. He plays keyboards. He plays bass. So he's really versatile. He's in a fabulous local band called Band, Banned, like kicked out, banned from Eden. And because of his versatility, and Jim Kaufman is in that band, because of Jim's versatility, they can cover a lot of ground in that band, and they are really high energy. They're a festival band, what I would say. So Russell, another great asset to our musical community here. I love having Russell here, and again, he's a beautiful cat. Big, big, big heart.
Very well said. I actually was lucky enough to catch one of the band from Eden shows this summer when I get out of work one night. And yeah, they are a quality act, to say the least. So good comments on those two men. Gabe and Suze Wood.
Whippoorwill Wood. Gabe and Suze are married. They've been married for a long time. And they have a duo together. And because they have been together so long, they've been singing together for a really, really, really long time. She has a fabulous voice. And the two of them together have beautiful harmonies. And Gabe is a really, really good musician. So when I get to play with them, in addition to backing up their vocals, creating what I call window dressing around their vocals, Gabe and I get to go at it, and we exchange really well together. So they are a lot of fun to play with. And they work a lot in the summer. You see their name popping up 4, 5, 6 times a week at various venues in the area and even out of the area. They'll drive 2 hours to a gig. Something you got to really have something to tempt me with to do these days, but they work really hard at it.
They are a new act that was just recently signed to the Ivy Manor active roster as of last season. That was their first season playing with us at the Ivy. An incredible get, an incredible signing. A lot of the reasons why I wanted to go get them was based on your reference that you gave them and the things that you were telling me about, not only about their show that they do, just the two of them, but your collaboration as well. And your relationship with them was, I think, part of the reason why I was finally able to get them signed to the active roster. And I saw some of these collaborations last year that you just talked about with them, and simply put, they're a great act. Just the two of them. You add in some Mark Bluesboy Kanter special sauce, and it just takes the show to another level. I got two more I want to touch upon real quick. The band River Bottom Funk.
So, am I the king of special sauce? Is that right? River Bottom Funk is led by Josh Small. Josh Small and I have a long history. We were in a band together called the Nightcrawlers. I don't know, 30 years ago? Maybe a long time ago. It was well into the past. So I've known and played with Josh for a long time. Josh, I have a lot of respect for him. He was a pharmacy tech at Miller Pharmacy in Bangor, and he hated it. And while he was working and raising kids, he went back to school, he got his master's degree, and he now runs the audio department at NESCOM at Hudson College. He's the guy in charge of all the recording studios there. It's fabulous. He teaches there as well. So I have a lot of respect for Josh. The other guys in the band, Joe England is one of the most solid drummers you're going to hear. And in addition to the fact that he's solid, he's really good at adding little bits to the music on the way into a solo, on the way out of a solo. What a pleasure he is to work with. The bass player, Brad O'Brien, again, one of the most solid bass players in the area. And you can have musical fun with Brad when he plays. You can trade back and forth. A great one to play with. Lincoln Blake, when he plays with them, he plays keyboards and saxophone. And Link is another consummate musician. And all of these guys understand what I call musicality, working together, not getting in the way of each other, just helping the music. And River Bottom is one of the best bands in the area at that. And I love playing with them, and I'm actually going to be with them on the 28th of this month, December. By the time you see this, it will have passed, but I'm really looking forward to playing with them again in a few days. So they are a hoot to play with, one of the best funk bands around, but they cover blues, they cover some pop tunes. Great local band.
Where will that gig be performed at?
That's going to be at the Y in Ellsworth, in the
Okay.
gym. There's a dance group up there. They love to dance. They bring bands in from time to time.
I was lucky enough to catch a River Bottom Funk show in Bangor about a year ago. You sat in that night, and all I can say is you guys had that club rocking. That's for darn sure. Folks, if you ever get a chance to see River Bottom Funk, with or without Mark Kanter, both will be great shows, but I certainly recommend it if Mark is there as well. The last group I've seen you collaborate with, Mark, and they are a blues act as well. I think that's one of the reasons why I love your playing with them so much. That's the blues band called Crying Out Loud, led by Brandon Stollard, and you actually also sat in and recorded an album with them as well. Can you talk about that for us a little bit?
So we go back to my Josh Small connection. I told you he runs the audio department at NESCOM. Last winter, I was sitting at my desk. The phone rings. It's Josh. I hadn't heard from him in a while. And he said, I'm sitting here with a producer, and we need someone to come and put some harmonica tracks down. Didn't know what the project was. Didn't know who the producer was. So I said, sure, I can do that. So I went up there. I met the producer, Paul Nelson. Not just a producer, but a Grammy-winning producer. He won a Grammy for producing one of Johnny Winter's records. So that was very cool. I met Brandon, whose record this was, the Crying Out Loud record. And I went in, and I think initially Paul's intention was to use what I did as a placeholder because he has access to Muddy Waters' harmonica player, Eric Clapton's harmonica player, Jerry Portnoy. But when I got in there and I did my job, he really liked what I did, and he ended up using most of it. And that's when I met Brandon. And it's a great CD. And since then, I've sat in with Brandon's band several times. And one of the things that happens to musicians when they work in the studio with a good producer, they become better musicians. And that is certainly true of Crying Out Loud. And I'm very, very fortunate I have an open invitation to sit in with them anytime they're around. And I've gotten to play with them quite a few times, and they are great to play with as well. So that's how I know them and my experience with Brandon. And again, it's a really, really good CD. All the tunes were written by Brandon. I think one of them was written by him and his father, so all original stuff. Great CD.
I have a copy of that CD. Certainly a great listen. Brandon and bandmate play the Ivy Manor Inn. On occasion, he brings in different band members to play with him. Matt Henley is an incredible keyboardist who has been playing with Brandon recently at the Ivy, and they really play off each other well. And you add that special sauce in there again named Mark Kanter, and it just takes it to another level. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, it's easy with guys like Matt. When they play at the Ivy, Brandon's playing acoustic guitar, and he doesn't do a lot of lead work. He's still doing some lead work, but he doesn't do a lot of it. And Matt and I, because Matt is sensitive and he's paying attention, we play really well together, and he plays really well with Brandon. So it's a really good sound, even when the acoustic version comes out.
I saw online the full band probably a month ago or so was playing a show over at Fogtown in Ellsworth. I made the trip over there. I hadn't seen full band yet. I'd only heard the full band on the CD that you were part of. Loved it, and went over and checked out some of their gig, and they're a great act. Played it simple.
They are a great act. Ben, the guitar player, young guy, he is a force of nature. I don't even know if he knows that, and please don't tell him, but he is a force of nature. And yeah, great band, great synergy. All of them work really, really well together, and really good energy.
Couldn't agree more. We talked about the album that you helped create with Crying Out Loud. You have experience with creating other albums, including your own. You have a CD/record out called The Drifter that was created a few years ago. Can you tell us a little bit about The Drifter, Mark, and also, the process of what goes into making a record?
So The Drifter is actually a blues opera, and the songs are sequential in the story of the Drifter, who is a rather unsavory character, by the way. Quite a few years ago, I think it was 12 or 14 years ago now, for some reason, I was looking at 3 songs that I had previously written. I don't know why that came into my head. And I looked at them and I said, you know what, I could plug these into a story. So I came up with the idea of creating a blues opera. I called my good friend John Kurgan, who was the producer and engineer on that record. And I said, John, I want to write and record a blues opera, but I want to write it as we record it. I said, I already have 3 tunes. Most producers at that point would say, finish the project and call me, don't bother me now. It was winter, and again, in the winter around here, you need a project, and John said, sure, let's do it. So we actually wrote and produced and recorded the album while it was being done, aside from the 3 tunes that were previously written. And because of having John as a producer, what I said before about when you work with a really good producer, you become a better musician. And that was the great gift to me. Working on that record with John, I became a better musician basically for the rest of my life. John had a great ear, and he would come over 3 times a week, and this is how the process works. We'd be working on a tune, and you record tracks digitally. It was just the 2 of us there. So I would record a guitar track, and then he'd go back and put a bass track in, and we'd build it like that. And then I do a vocal track. And that's how you build the song in the studio. And the drummer, actually, the local drummer, Mike Bennett, who did most of the tunes on the record, one of the best drummers I've ever played with, a world-class drummer, they come in last. because you basically record to a click track, a mechanical metronome. Tick, 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 tick. And after you get all the tracks in, the metronome's important, so when the drummer comes in, he can be the clock. And that's basically the process. And the record came out really well. And one of the things I like about it, now that I'm over the 50-time listen where you're just critical, I started listening to it as a listener. I go, this is pretty good. And the songs actually hold up individually over time, too, a lot of them. So that was my project.
I also have a copy of that CD. Definitely a great listen. If you're interested in getting a copy of any of these records from Crying Out Loud or Mark Bluesboy Kanter, send us a message through Facebook, show up at one of these shows, and we'll certainly get you a copy of these great records. Mark, as you know, we just finished our 4th season of doing live music at the Ivy Manor Inn. We mentioned it earlier. You were the first musician to play a gig there. You've been with me all 4 seasons there. You're a big part of what we do there, from a solo standpoint, from a collaboration standpoint. You'll certainly be a big part of what we do moving forward. Tell our listeners a little bit about your experience playing at the Ivy Manor Inn, why you like playing there so much. From the outside looking in, it seems like you're having an awful lot of fun there. Your thoughts?
So the Ivy Manor is what I would call a magical place because of its location. It is right in the center of the village of Bar Harbor, across from the village green, and the outside area of the Ivy is its own green space. So the park, which is diagonally across the street, you could say the Ivy becomes an extension of the park. It feels like you're sitting in a park environment. So it's a beautiful environment. The music starts usually at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. People had just finished eating lunch. A lot of them had been in the park in the morning, maybe riding a bike, hiking a mountain. They finished lunch. They're walking around. The music starts at 2, and I see this over and over and over again. The lawn will be basically empty. And then the music starts, and it's almost like the Pied Piper. It pulls the people in, and within sometimes 10 minutes, 15 minutes, the lawn is full, and it's time for on with the show. That's one of the beautiful things about the Ivy. The other thing is that these are all really happy people. A lot of them are on vacation. They saw the beauty of Acadia a couple of hours ago. They just had a good lunch, and now there's live music. And one thing I can say as a musician, it's always great to play for happy people. It's an infectious feeling, and pretty soon everybody gets happy. And in these times, a lot of people are anxious about many, many things. It is a vacation from that. When people come in and sit at the Ivy, that's the only thing that exists. It's the music. You know, interestingly enough, a lot of times you'll go and play there or be there listening to music, and you look around the lawn, and there are very few phones out. Everybody is there for that moment. So I love that about the Ivy. The other thing is you got this great little mini bar there. Good selection of whiskey and beer and wine. And as you know, people sometimes need to get a little lubricated. And it changes their attitude. So it's a great place to play and hang out. And one of the beautiful things about playing there is that people there are really appreciative of the music. So it's a fabulous venue. There is no other like it anywhere in the town of Bar Harbor.
All great points. You said it, you know, people are there for the show. I go to some bars and clubs, and a lot of the times the music that's being played there is kind of a backdrop or you know, background noise, if you will. You're so engulfed in your conversations, you're not really into the show. The Ivy's just the opposite. At the end of each song, typically the entire lawn will applaud. Not only do we have the garden lounge, which we call it, which is inside of our fencing area for people to sit and enjoy the show. You've got Main Street, Bar Harbor there with a very, very active and busy sidewalk with people stopping and listening. We have 3 open-air restaurants and bars around us as well. Traffic is very slow that time of year because it's very, very busy in town. I saw a car drive by with all their windows down, going about 2 or 3 miles an hour with everybody but the driver giving you and applause as they drove by at one of your shows. So that was very fun to see. Yeah, great place, great exposure, a lot of happy people. Folks, if you haven't been to any of our shows yet, please come and hang out with us, and we will deliver an incredible show for you.
So, Brian, kudos to you because that didn't exist when you took over management of that place. It was basically there for the guests, and a few drop-ins would come by during the day. And you have built that place into one of the major venues in the area. So kudos to you and thank you for doing that.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but I think it was a little bit of luck as well. Right place, right time. You said it earlier, outdoor amplified sound was never really allowed in Bar Harbor over the years. One positive thing that came from COVID was the town started to allow things to be done outside, including live music. And when our owner of our great company, Peter Hastings, put me in charge of the live music, I was elated. I love live music. I love music as a whole. We've worked together in the past, even before the Ivy Manor Inn. And as I said in my opening comments, when I hear live music or anything pertaining to live music, Mark Bluesboy Kanter is typically the first person I call. So it's been a great 4 years, Mark. I'm really looking forward to the future, and we're always trying to make 2025 better than 2024, and moving forward. Every year the goal is to make the next year better than it was, and the bar's been set high, and a lot of that has to do with musicians like you and all the great musicians that we have playing at the Ivy Manor Inn. That's for darn sure. So thank you for everything that you've done and your contributions to the Ivy Manor Inn and the local music scene as a whole. So thank you so much, Mark.
It's a gift for me, to me, and for me to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Magic is a word I've heard you use over the years. You just said it in answering the last question. It's a word that resonates with me very well because when you hear some of these incredible shows being performed, it's a magical moment. And I think what I like about you, Mark, is you've certainly created magic on your own and magic with these other musicians. But what I like about you is you're very supportive of the music community as a whole. You love music too. You'll show up as a spectator and support your local musicians from the community because you're showing support and you also love the show. Tell our listeners a little bit about some of the magic that you've personally witnessed at the Ivy Manor Inn over the last 4 years.
Well, because of the array of people that you managed to get to play there, my good friend Hannah Risley. She's a beautiful young woman with what I would call a magical voice. Magical voice. I don't think she understands just how magical it is, but I see it not only in myself but other people. When I go to hear her play, I will sit, close my eyes, and let her voice take me away. And that's the feeling that people get when they listen to her. So every time I go and see her play there is magic. Our good friend Chris Foster, who in addition to being a fabulous musician, he is a great entertainer. He and I play together sometimes when he was in town. And there was one day we both went wireless. We have the ability to go wireless now. Have a little transmitter, a little receiver, plug the transmitter into my microphone, plug the receiver into my amp, and I can walk around the venue and do that. And he had the same with his guitar, so we were untethered. And one day we were walking around the lawn at the Ivy. We would stop in front of each crowd and literally play to them. And we did that. We walked around the whole lawn, and that was beautiful magic. And it was magic for us, and it was magic for them. But over the course of time, when just seeing all these great people play at the Ivy and watching the interaction, Dakota is another one. Dakota is what, 16 years old? Only been playing for a few years. He is what we call a looper. Looper is a device where you can create tracks in real time. Little pieces that you put together into a musical piece, and he does a great job of that. And even at the age of 16, he has a great sense of production. And he creates magic when he plays. And there are other people at the Ivy that do the same. It's I love magic. Magic is one of my two favorite things in the world. The other is surprise, and they kind of go hand in hand.
Well said. Very well said. Um, there's been a lot of highlights in your career, Mark. You've been playing music for well over 50 years. Um, I know of gigs that you've played at College of the Atlantic, the Criterion Theater, clubs all over Maine, Portsmouth, New Hampshire a couple of years ago on New Year's, I believe it was. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You have a database of 50 plus years of some of these incredible highlights, some highlights I don't even know about. Could you talk about some of these highlights that might come to mind that have stuck out in your 50 plus musical career?
Well, it happens periodically over the whole 50 years. You mentioned the Criterion. I got to play there a couple of times, and last year, actually, at the college, with Jazz Meets Samba. My friend Alice runs a music camp up here. She has two, actually, an acoustic camp and a jazz and samba camp. And she finds the best players in the world to come and teach at these camps. It's also kind of like a working vacation for them. So the jazz and samba group have all these amazing musicians. A lot of them are from Brazil. Nilson Mata is the musical director for that camp, and he is in demand as a samba bass player. He is probably the world's #1 leading samba upright bass player. I don't know how she gets these people to come here. Anyway, they put together an amazing group. They always do a show after the week of teaching, and for the last few times they did that, I was the invited guest artist. So I got to play with these amazing musicians from Brazil. And a lot of them, because they are from Brazil, they have not been exposed to harmonica much. And a couple of times ago, I was playing with them, and one of the guys in the band came up to me, and he said, well, what is it that you were actually playing? So I took my harmonica, and I said, I was playing this. And he looked at it, and he said, that's it? So yeah, that was a great experience. I had a great experience with Livingston Taylor. Livingston is James Taylor's brother, and I need to take my hat off for this. You'll know why in a minute. And I did a festival, and Livingston was the headliner. And after the festival, we were hanging out, and I said, Livingston, people tell me I look like your brother. Is it true? And he looked at me and he said, and I quote, James would be happy to look like you. So that was kind of a highlight. That was a great thing to do. I opened several years ago at the Grand Theater in Ellsworth for Coco Montoya. Coco is an amazing guitar player and vocalist. What a great voice he has. Great, great player. And he started as a drummer for Albert Collins. And Albert Collins taught him how to play guitar, and he is a great performer in his own right. So I got to open for him. That was another highlight. But the highlights go on, and one of the main highlights of my musical career is going to an open mic like the Finn back in Bar Harbor and having a magical experience with the players that are there. And I love being part of that. And that continues to be some of the best magic. So I've had some great moments, yes. And I am grateful for all of them.
Awesome stuff to hear. And I can personally speak upon some magic that I have seen created at some of these open mics. I guess it was about 3 weeks ago. I was down at the Finback here in Bar Harbor. There you were with, I believe, 6 other musicians on stage. You guys played about a 5-song set. I came away thoroughly impressed and thought to myself, this could be a band that's playing venues and getting paid for it. And what makes it so impressive is, yeah, you know these guys from open mics and whatnot, but I wouldn't think there'd be a whole lot of practice time together, as everybody's got their lives and living here and living there. For not a lot of time together on stage, you guys sounded incredible. Can you talk about how that all comes together with not a lot of airtime, if you will?
Well, practice is cumulative. So I've been practicing for 60 years, if you want to think about it like that. But what happens is, at these open mics, the same people come out to the open mics in the area over a period of years. As I said, Russell has been running this open mic for decades. And what I have seen, and this is one of the beautiful things about being part of that community for the whole time, I have seen people who initially did not know how to play with other musicians become consummate musicians. And what that means is, when you're playing, it's not about you, it's not about your ego, it's not about you showing off how great you are, it's about serving the song. And what happens sometimes, that night you were there at the Finback, that was a magic night. All the people in the band knew how to serve the song. And one of the other things that I do when I'm leading a band at the open mic, I will direct as I go. You'll see me turn around to the musicians and give them a cue. And because they know how to do that now, you can basically go into a place like that, assemble a band, play a set, and have people like you think that, wow, that sounded like it was well rehearsed. But again, I've been rehearsing for 60 years. These other musicians have been rehearsing for decades as well, and they understand how to make it happen. And that's how that works.
Very, very cool. I look forward to the next one, that's for sure. I like to visit these open mics in the area, just from an entertainment standpoint, but you never know who you're going to see up there on stage. There's been some musicians that I have never seen or met before, and I come away from these miniature shows, if you will, because you typically only get 3, 4, maybe 5 songs at an open mic because there's lots of people wanting to play. It's turned me on to them, and next thing you know, I signed up to the active roster at the Ivy Manor Inn, and some of these people are stars now.
Well, these open mics are kind of like the scene from Forrest Gump. I don't know if you remember the scene where he said, "Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get." And open mics can be like that.
Absolutely. Mark, this has been a lot of fun having you on the show. I really, really appreciate it. Folks, we're planning on opening on May 2nd this year, which is the first Friday of May. The first Saturday of May is our typical annual Kentucky Derby party. Never too early to start thinking about that. And then once we're off and running, we have a live show there every single day for 6 straight months, weather permitting, as we are an outdoor venue. If you've never visited us at the Ivy Manor Inn before, I personally invite you into the Ivy. My staff and I will take great care of you, and while you're there, you're going to hear an incredible show from one of 70 plus musicians I can call for a gig. You're never going to see the same show twice. You're going to see a lot of different styles of music. You're going to see a lot of different instruments up there as well. And Mark, if you'd be so kind, I'd love for you to play a sample of what you do with your harmonica and give a preview to some of our listeners out there who may have never seen you play before and what they can expect to see at the Ivy Manor Inn for the upcoming season in 2025.
Well, I'm more than happy to do that because I always love to play.
Simply put, awesome with a capital A. I've seen that performed, not that particular song, but seen you play harmonica, got to be hundreds of times now over the last several years, and I can honestly say, Mark, it never gets old.
Well, thank you. You know, the people that listen are 50% of the equation.
Okay. Absolutely. Mark, I, again, appreciate you coming on the show. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully, we peeled back that curtain and let some folks watching the show and listening to the show learn a little bit more about what we're doing at the Ivy Manor Inn, learn about what you're doing, learned about your story, which is very fascinating, I must say. And folks, if you've never visited us at the Ivy Manor Inn before, please come. We have great shows every single day from early May till the end of October. And as I said earlier, we just finished our 4th season, which was our 4th season bet yet. And we're looking to make 2025 even better. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining the show. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you around town.
Thank you for having me, Brian, and rock on.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, everybody.